Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone.
Into the meeting, Peter.
Again, no worries.
Can we discuss this after the meeting?
I'll speak to you later, let's say tomorrow. All right?
Okay, all right.
Hello, Margot.
Yes,
Hello.
I have to do this. You're on the side.
Sorry, hang on. I'm in my car.
I hope you haven't rolled it.
I was trying to not have to hold it with my sat nav holder, but no,
Good.
didn't work. Oh dear.
According to my calculations, Councillor Jeffries, we have 9 councillors in attendance at the moment. We would be expecting 14.
Well, we'll wait till 5 past before we start. I would expect more people to be here. No one's queuing, I take it.
No. Oh, Councillor Yarrow's now coming in.
And Andrew Appleby's here.
Yes, he is. Councillor Anderson's now coming in.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kevin. Are we expecting anyone else?
Only councillors, as far as I know.
Yeah.
With,
Hello, Michael. Michael Anderson, hello. Nope, can't hear me.
I think he's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll start the meeting, and I apologise for the late start to the meeting. Perhaps next time we'll try and work out how we can get it started at 6 o'clock, which is the correct time. Welcome everyone to the meeting of Newmarket Town Council on Monday the 1st of June, and I should announce, or I will announce, that the meeting is being recorded. And is anyone else recording the meeting? I can't hear anyone, so I'm assuming no one else is recording the meeting. So moving on to item 2, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from councillors Kirby and Lay.
Thank you. I'll now move on Is there any other apologies? Does anyone know of any others?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I've just realised that our minute taker isn't actually here just at the moment.
Shall we proceed?
Yes.
Okay. So item 3, it concerns interest, declaration of members' interests, and to remind councillors of the need to keep up to date with the register of members' interests and to consider any requests received for members' dispensation. Have we received any?
No.
Okay. Moving then on to the minutes of our meeting held on Monday, the 18th of May. And first of all, for accuracy, so I'll go through page by page. Page 1, page 2.
I've got a question on page 2. Down at the bottom, I don't believe that it was agreed that the proposal would be added to the next full council agenda. It was, I think if you look at the recording, it wasn't agreed.
I think the proposal was to put it on the next council agenda and no one opposed it.
Well,
you're saying there was no resolution to that effect?
Yeah, you could say it was discussed or something like that, but it clearly wasn't agreed.
Town council manager, have you got any views on this?
We could, if Councillor Hood is happy with the wording to be changed that it was agreed, then that would be.
No, she's saying it wasn't agreed. I'm not quite certain. What amendment would you like, Councillor Hood?
Well, I think I'd be happy with it saying it was discussed, because it was discussed, but it wasn't agreed.
Would suggested be a good word?
Would you accept suggested?
Yes, happy to do that.
Can you move that amendment then, please, Councillor Hood?
Well, it sounds like, yes, okay, I'm happy, yeah.
I just want to make certain everyone knows what it is. And Councillor Appleby, you will second that.
I'll second, yeah.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favour of that amendment then, please, to the minutes.
No worries.
Yes.
And those against? Okay, moving on. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5.
Oh yeah, okay.
Councillor Drummond.
Thank you. Just unmuting. Yeah, there is a table on page 5, and it's part of a resolution on page 4 that members be elected as representative on other bodies for 2021. The very last entry, Newmarket Festival Grant Subcommittee, although Councillors Hood and myself are on it, we are not elected to be on there by the Town Council. So I suggest that very last item is struck out of the table, please.
Right, so you're on it, but you're not representing the Town Council.
Well, there are two aspects. I'm on it, and no, I'm not representing the Town Council, but it's not within the Town Council's gift to appoint anybody to that committee. So the resolution reads wrong in that members be elected as representative on other bodies, and then we're in the list of people that's implying that we've been elected by the Town Council to be on that body. The Town Council doesn't have the option to appoint anybody to that committee.
Okay, so you're making a proposal that the minutes be amended to delete that item?
Yes.
Is that proposed? Is that seconded?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favour of deleting that?
Yes.
Yes.
And those against? That is carried. Page 6. Page 7. And page 8. Okay, now for matters arising, again, going through page by page, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4.
Sorry, page 3, I have contacted SALC and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. Okay, deals with the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May.
Can I propose the minutes be accepted?
Thank you very much. I forgot that. Thank you, Councillor Appleby. It's been proposed that we accept the minutes. Is that seconded? That's Councillor O'Neill. All those in favour, please, show your hands.
Yes.
And those against. So that the minutes are accepted as a correct record as amended. We now move to public participation, and I know we can welcome Margot Walsh and Amy Starkey. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak under public participation? No one else at this point? Town Council Manager, is there anyone who you know of that wishes to speak?
No. No.
Okay, so Margot and Amy, very much welcome to our meeting, such as it is, and you're going to tell us something, I believe. Who's going to kick us off?
I'll start, and then Amy's available to support and answer questions, etc. So, I think most people are aware that we resumed racing today, so it's fantastic for the sport and the industry. We will be racing at Newmarket between the 4th and the 7th of June. Racing will resume under strict, under the support of the public health and obviously approval of the government, because it's seen as a non-contact sport and it takes place outdoors, so the risks of transmissions are different to other contact sports. Detailed protocols for racing behind closed doors have been created to minimise unavoidable risk. As an industry, we have been working really hard to put safe protocols in place to make it safe, and working closely with the government and Public Health England. And the protocol covers everyone attending the race day and the people that will be there for essential purposes only, to the point where they leave their home in order to the point where they arrive. The team have been working closely with the BHA, RCA, Racecourse and the Horsemen's Group to develop guidelines and operating procedures for racing behind closed doors, racecourse specific operating plans with a checklist, financial modelling, which we needed to have in clear place, communication plans, which we have shared, and any questions and answers that need to be done. During the first week, there are really strict control measures. There will be sort of really minimising the risk of spreading the virus. This will include screening, testing, PPE, hand hygiene, strict cleaning measures and social distancing, and a stringent 3-stage screening process will be in place. This includes an education module. This is an online education module that anybody wanted to come has to have done. This includes, again, social distancing, hand and respiratory hygiene, racecourse protocols and PPE requirements. Health questionnaire, which every single person who wishes to come has to have a part of accreditation, and on the day screening and a temperature check. There's a huge amount of additional work that's gone in upon of that as an industry. So the Jockey Club have implemented antibody testing for all members of their team who are part of that delivery process. We've updated risk assessments to cover what the requirements are. We've covered return to work. There's online training modules. So Jockey Club employees have had to do the BHA training module, and then on top of that, they've also had to do a Jockey Club one. There's an appointment of COVID-19 officers, social distancing officers to work with the BHA, and there's really stringent measures in place to make sure it's as safe as possible. The steering group, I also went through the plans of where we will, the part of the Jockey Club Heath that will be closed to the public and the times that they are. I think most of you have seen that in the press, but I think it was fair to update you as a whole council and have it on public record. Any questions?
Thank you, Margot.
Yeah, I think just to add to Margot's excellent summary of the work that we've been doing over the course of the last few months, in addition to all of the amazing community work that all of you have been doing, and I know Margot and other members of the Jockey Club team have heavily featured in that. clearly COVID-19 has had a devastating effect on us all, not least the racing industry, which directly and indirectly employs 87,500 people. We do need to get our industry and our sport going, and it's fantastic that with full government approval we've been able to do that, with racing taking place up at Newcastle today, closely followed by a jockey club course, Kempton Park, tomorrow, and Newmarket from Thursday. Margot's outlined the strict control measures and protocols that are in place for all people who will be attending racing behind closed doors from Thursday. Only people who have a designated role to deliver the racing will be accredited via the BHA to gain access onto the race courses. And in order to deliver racing behind closed doors safely, we essentially need the town and the community's support. And we've encouraged through the media, and a lot of you I know have been hugely supportive of our efforts, that we encourage people to stay away from the Rowley Mile over the course of the 4 days, but that the Jockey Club, we're actively encouraging people to continue to use the Heath, to continue to enjoy the outdoor space on the many thousands of acres that the Jockey Club owns, that we don't need across those 4 days to deliver racing. So I think it's just, Margot and I were keen to join tonight to just outline to you our plans, answer any questions that you might have, but really just to call for everybody's help in supporting the effort. We took the decision not to close Devil's Dyke, so anybody is welcome to walk along Devil's Dyke if they so wish. We will just be encouraging people not to dwell on that public footpath, but to move along. So we recognise the impact that the diversion of Devil's Dyke had on the community a few years ago. We've learnt from that, and we're keen that when we resume racing, we do so with the full support of our community.
Thank you very much, Amy. Now, if that's all right with both Margot and Amy, can we take questions from councillors? Is that okay? Yeah. Councillor Hood.
Yes, I'm aware in my other life how incredibly hard Amy and Margot and all their colleagues have worked in order to deliver this resumption of racing, and I'm hugely in awe of everything they've done. It's been unbelievably complicated, an unbelievable amount of work, and they've done an unbelievably brilliant job. So from where I know, huge congratulations are due to them on behalf of all the people who are employed and the industry itself. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll just say good luck, but also Devil's Dyke wise, it's very narrow at the top there. Wouldn't it be a social distancing problem anyway, unless you just do a one-way system? They walk down Devil's Dyke one way and come back on July Racecourse the other way, because even when walking a dog, there's a risk when somebody's coming the other way that you might tumble down into the ditch.
Yeah, I think that's something that Councillor Appleby, that we'll need to monitor, dependent on the number of people that we have there, and clearly there will be flexibility for people to be able to walk either side of the dyke as well, not just along the top. I think it's something that we look at once we start, and if it's proving to be an issue, then we'd look to potentially implement a one-way system. The weather forecast is due to change from next Thursday, and we are forecast rain across all 4 days of the race meeting currently, which I think will discourage people from coming out.
And to add to and echo Amy's comments, we did actually, a few of us social distanced and had a walk up there. And as part of that, I know there's a meeting today to look at additional support if that became a problem, and to look at how we could re-divert resources if we needed to that area. So it has been considered.
Any other questions from councillors?
No, all I want to say was just good luck, and it's great that it's coming back.
Thank
you. Well done.
Yeah, it's been a long few months, and actually, just a personal point from me. Thank you to all of you as councillors, and to Deborah as the town council manager. You should all be exceptionally proud of how everybody's come together to support this community, and that was that was instigated and driven by all of you. So yeah, personally from me, thank you for that. And I think, in every crisis or every challenge comes opportunity, and if that can be about forging better and stronger relationships across the community to help support the community, both racing and non-racing, that's certainly a good thing for me to come out of this. So Councillor Jeffries, congratulations on being appointed mayor. I wish you every success for the coming year, and know that you and all of your councillors have the full support of the Jockey Club.
Very kind of you, Amy. Thank you very much. I'm assuming there's no more questions, and I would just like to say thank you so much, Amy and Margot, for coming along to brief us. We do like to feel that we're involved in all aspects of Newmarket, and obviously that involves racing. So I'm very grateful, as are, I'm sure, other councillors, that you've made the time to come along.
Thank you very much, Amy and Margot.
The Councillor Holwood said thank you very much to both of you.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move on to item 6, which is looking at the minutes of the development planning meeting held on the 26th of May. And Councillor Caesar, would you like to present these minutes?
Yeah. I hereby present the meetings of the Development Planning Committee held on the 26th of May and seek their adoption. There are no recommendations to the full council.
So we are noting we don't have to vote on this, I take it, Deborah. Should we vote to adopt these?
I think we vote to adopt, but we don't go through the accuracy or anything.
No, that's right.
So can I,
okay.
can I propose to adopt it?
Someone like to second? That's Councillor O'Neill. All those in favour of accepting these minutes?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anyone against? No. Moving on to the coronavirus response minutes, and you've got 2 sets there. And they're on pages 15 onwards on your pack. And as the chairman of the steering group, I'm pleased to present these minutes. Any comments on them? Okay. I will, again, thank all councillors, thank the volunteer network, and indeed all the organisations that have enabled the helpline to continue, and it does continue, and councillors continue to be on it. Councillor Yarrow.
Douglas has introduced the new software for call handlers to use, and I used it for the first time on Monday, and it proved to be very, very effective, and responses much quicker, and the feedback to the call handler was very positive.
Yeah, I can echo those thoughts. I was also started using it. I think it might have been last week, but yes, it was much easier than I expected to use. And thank you, Douglas, for taking us through that.
Echo that.
And indeed working out the whole system. Sometimes I think it's a miracle the way it works, but then it's technology. Any further comments on those minutes? They are to be noted, and as such, I believe we have done so. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the coronavirus financial update, which is page 19 of your pack. And any comments to Kathy on this? Any questions? Okay, I can't see anyone questioning that. So do we need to vote to receive them, Deborah?
I think they're really just for noting.
Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, moving on then to finance. And your first part is the asset register, which starts at page 21 of your pack. Any comments on the asset register?
I had a question. I noticed that there's no sort of depreciation taken into account when it comes to the vehicles and was it telephone hardware and CCTV equipment and things like that. Is that because we don't need to take into account depreciation, or?
No, parish and town councils don't depreciate. I think it was
okay.
about 8 or 9 years ago. This.
Okay.
It's
So they don't
a
depreciate.
constant question from many councillors who don't understand, and I mean, none
No,
of us.
no, I don't. Because you used to seeing
we're now
kind of
used
company
to
ones,
it
yes.
not being depreciated. Yes.
Mm.
Councillor Diaz, did you want to say something? No, no. Anything? Yes, Councillor Drummond.
I would imagine that we don't depreciate because normally in an account, a company that has to submit accounts and then be taxed, depreciation is a way of writing equipment off. We don't have to pay tax, so we don't kind of have to write equipment off in that financial way.
That's a very good explanation and the best one I've heard so far. Okay, unless there are any questions, we do need to approve these. Can I have a proposer to approve these? It's Councillor Caesar, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All those in favour of approving the asset register?
Yes.
And anyone against? Carried. We move on to the risk management scheme, which starts at page 23 of your pack. Any comments on the risk management scheme? Councillor Caesar.
Yes, sorry, on page 32, there's a note about legal powers, and it notes 2019. I was wondering if we just need to update that.
So this is it. I think there's quite a few items in there that need updating. This was something that we should look at yearly and didn't look at last year. And the next revision has been put for some reason as September 21 when it should have been earlier. There are a few things like that that are slightly off. But I think if the basis of it, to send it to audit, if the basis of it is correct, and you're happy with that, this would be something that probably we would look at again within, well, definitely we would look at again within this financial year to get down to the actual basis of looking at dates and so on.
Councillor Hood.
Yeah, on page 7, the neighbourhood plan, the last item, I think we definitely need to update that because it says need to reflect public views if to succeed at referendum.
Yeah, I think we can say that it needs updating, and I would suggest that this becomes an item on the Finance and Policy Committee when it's formally meets again, which I think it is going to meet in 3 weeks' time. Correct? Finance and Policy meeting in 3 weeks' time. And that will be in a proper Finance and Policy Committee meeting, won't be a working group, as we move gradually back to our schedule of meetings. So, do we need to approve these? I mean, we know they're inaccurate. Can we not say that we refer these to the next Finance and Policy meeting? Is that appropriate?
I'd like to propose that because there are things that, yeah.
Okay, so that has been proposed. Is that seconded? Okay, that's seconded. And is there any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favour that that should be discussed at the next F&P meeting?
Yes.
And those against? That's agreed. We now go to earmark reserves, which are on page 35 of your pack. I think these need to be referred to F&P. Some of them aren't necessary. Some of them, I think, need to consider, are the right amounts going in? Should be looking at saving up for things. And I would expect that F&P would form a working group to look at how we manage our earmark reserves, where we would think we need to save for future difficulties, and which of these earmark reserves we should continue and which we should delete. As you can see, many of them got nothing in them at all. I've always felt that earmark reserves are a very important part of our finances, because it's through earmark reserves that we are trying to save for the future. Any comments on these earmark reserves? Yes, Councillor Hood.
Not so much on the earmark reserves, but I personally can't really understand why we would have a working group rather than just discuss it all at an F&P meeting. So that's in public, it's open and transparent, and I can't really understand why we wouldn't do that.
I don't feel strongly. I think the reason I suggest it, I think working groups can take us forward in the sense that it's easier to discuss and come up with different ideas. For instance, I would expect it not to be just a case of a report presented to you, but for councillors actually to produce a report, which was then discussed at F&P. It wouldn't make the decisions would be F&P that make the decisions, but it's about, rather than relying on Kathy to produce a report saying, well, you ought to say for this, you ought to say for that, and we're not using this, the councillors do that, to say, well, these are our priorities, this is what we should be saving for, and indeed maybe even referring to the neighbourhood plan to see how our earmark reserves might correspond to the neighbourhood plan. That's the way I'm looking at it, councillor, not to hide anything away, but to use the ideas of the councillors to take the council forward.
Okay, well, I mean, that's actually an explanation I can accept. So, but I don't particularly like working groups. I think that we should be doing things in public, as you know. But
well, it's the F&P will decide whether to have a working group, but that's one way of looking at a way forward. Okay. Again, we're rather than approve these, we're putting it suggesting that this goes to the next F&P meeting, and I'll move that from the chair as I've spoken on that. Town Council Manager, yes.
So the agenda item is to review and approve the earmarked reserves,
yes.
And that we need to have a resolution to that effect for the benefit of the external.
I understand. As long as the resolution includes that it will be amended at a future.
Well, I just think perhaps the matter be referred to the Finance and Policy to review and look at options for the future.
Okay. So the resolution is to approve the earmark reserves and to ask F&P to review the earmark reserves. Is that clear? Okay, is that seconded?
Yes.
Ah, thank you, Councillor Caesar and Councillor Appleby. Okay, anyone wish to speak? No, you look like you're ready to vote. All those in favour, please show your hands.
Yes.
Okay.
And anyone against? Thank you very much. That brings us to, strangely, item 11. What happened to item 10? Have I missed something?
Oh, yeah.
So, but what I would like is for item 11 to be put in the confidential part of the meeting. This deals with named councillors, and it should be, therefore, be in the confidential part of the meeting. I would need someone to second that proposal. Thank you. That is seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Is there any discussion of this? Because we have to vote for it to go into confidential. Okay, all those in favour of that this should go into confidential, please show.
Yes.
Okay.
And those against? I don't think anyone's against. I think Michael's frozen there in his agreement. So item 11 will go into confidential. We'll now go to item 12, which is the Wetherby Crossing, and to receive an update on the public inquiry and preparation for the statement of case. The Town Council Manager, I believe you're going to brief us on this.
Well, the statement of case deadline was the 26th of May, and the barrister had promised to provide a draft version of the statement of case, or had intended to, by the Tuesday of the week before, but had an urgent matter which took up her time that week. So the draft wasn't received until the Sunday of the bank holiday weekend. And Rachel Wood was working with the barrister on making sure that all the appropriate appendices as evidence were available and complete and up to date. So she worked through the night on Monday and all day Tuesday, but when it came to the draft statement of case, when it arrived, had the appendices. It specified that there would be an appendix, but the number, we needed to get the referencing right, and the number needed to be added into the actual statement of case and make sure that it referenced correctly with the correct reference, with the correct appendix, which was quite a significant amount of work. And that was completed, and all the emails sent with the statement of case and all the supporting evidence, 7 emails in total, were sent at 11 o'clock on Tuesday night. So we just achieved that deadline. But we're still awaiting a decision from the planning inspector as to whether or not the inquiry will continue on the 28th of July. And if so, at which venue, whether it would still be at the football club as is the current venue, or whether it would be held at the Memorial Hall. But I have had it confirmed today that that came through on correspondence just forwarded before the meeting started, that Suffolk County Council will fund the hire of the facility for the public inquiry.
I suppose we should be thankful for that. Does that conclude your...
Sorry, Councillor Holbert was just speaking. So can you repeat?
Yes, sorry, Derek. At either place, either the football club or the Memorial, they fund it.
Yes, whichever they will fund the venue.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to record my thanks to Rachel Wood for the astonishing amount of work she's done, and the Town Council Manager in supporting Rachel in getting this through and done on time. And it is a very comprehensive document, of which is the best we could do, and I'm sure it does cover our case very well. Anyone else wish to speak on the Wetherby crossing? Yes, Councillor Hood.
The Wetherby crossing is obviously a complicated matter. I was the one who sent the correspondence I got from David Last, who is the Suffolk County Council person helping us with all of this through. And Suffolk County Council have to remain neutral, etc., but they are picking up some of the costs that they can. It seems unlikely, although we haven't had any confirmation, that the hearing will actually go ahead according to David Last as scheduled. So I had thought that the Wetherby crossing was something that it would be a really good thing for our new town clerk to get involved with, so that she could carry it on. And I'd be interested to hear what our acting town council manager thinks about that, because it is complicated. I'm involved a bit, but not obviously as much as Councillor Hulbert and Rachel Wood and Michael Smythe. So I think we ought to have a discussion about how we want it dealt with, because of the amount of time that has to go into it, and the potential that the hearing may actually be postponed until later in the year. So Deborah, what do you think about your role and the new town clerk in this regard?
Well, for starters, although the public inquiry is likely to be, well, we're hopeful on this side of the table that the inquiry would be deferred to allow those people who would wish to be involved to actually be engaged in the process. However, the planning inspector decided not to defer the statement of case date. And I have kept Debbie up to speed. She has been included in relevant correspondence. So she has seen the statement of case, both in its draft form as it arrived and in the completed version. Perhaps we might like to ask, and going forward, I can't see that there would be, now that the statement of case has been submitted, I don't see that there's a huge volume of work would be required until we know more about what's happening with the inquiry. So I don't see myself having to do very much more at all on the Wetherby crossing. But I don't know whether you want to ask your new town clerk.
Debbie, are you prepared to say anything? You will have read the papers.
Skimmed them, but I haven't had a chance to fully take it all on board as Deborah has done and put so much work into it. So I was very glad that she was able to do all that work last week, because to have been thrown in at that point would have been horrendous, and I wouldn't have been able to assist in anywhere near the same way. But going forward, yes, obviously I'll try and do all I can to absorb all that information.
Thank you, Debbie. And yes, when you get an opportunity.
So, sorry, Councillor Holbert wants to speak.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Holbert.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Mayor. The thing is, obviously, on that, because that we might have a bit of a rest period with it and everything, obviously we might give chance for Debbie to go right the way through this so that she's on track with our TCM on it. So this is what I was, obviously we look for. The more people we've involved on the council, the better it is. This is my view, because it is a complicated matter. And obviously I wouldn't like her to go straight into it in the dark. But obviously she can be really brought up to date on the things that are actually going on. Probably she might be already doing that, Deborah, but I don't know.
Thank you, Councillor Holbert. Yes, I was only going to make the point that in the end it's about a footpath that so many people in Newmarket use, and if you go and see it, you can't believe that anyone will want to close it and stop people using that route. Any other comments on the Wetherby crossing?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. The only other comments I do have is sometimes we are at a disadvantage because of lockdown and everything. We cannot certainly agree on some people. We would like to have words with them, but we can't really go and knock on the doors and this sort of thing at the moment. We have to rely on the telephone. Well, some of them are not on the phone, believe it or not.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's certain evidence that we can't get because
getting in touch with our own people that want to support to knock out the crossing off this crossing.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holbert. I think I'm going to move on, which is item 13, Newmarket Neighbourhood Plan, to discuss the way forward. Councillor Hood, I think you wanted to speak on this.
Yeah, it's become really quite urgent in light of the McDonald's matter, because the planning officers at West Suffolk Council take the view that it's a pretty unattractive industrial area up at the junction of Willie Snaith Drive and where the McDonald's is potentially to be sited. So that's fine, isn't it? Which I believe is not the same view that councillors have taken since we voted on this. So I think we need to be clear in our own minds what we are doing, and we need to get on and do it, in my view, because I'm very clear, and I will address West Suffolk on this issue on Wednesday and say to them, we have to start somewhere. Just because it's horrible now doesn't mean to say it's okay to make it more horrible, etc., etc. So I think we ought to try. I mean, I know lockdown is coming to, an end, but I think we ought to try and have a meeting. I'm addressing this to you as the mayor, that we had sort of planned before lockdown happened, and at least try and get started on this, because unsurprisingly, most councillors, unless you happen to have been on the steering group, don't really understand what we should be doing, and we've got lots of good things to do, and we need to start getting those out there, I think. So that's...
Yep, Hood, I do agree with you, and I would propose these actions. I think that we should send paper copies of all the policies as one document, a paper copy of all the community actions as one document to all councillors, so that they can file it away and can retrieve it whenever they need to, particularly for development and planning meetings. And I would like to take up Councillor Appleby's idea that one of our standing committees is a Newmarket Neighbourhood Plan Committee, which would be the committee that could keep an eye on planning matters and the community actions and taking them forward. The workshop's not going to really work under these conditions, but we can get around that by having a standing committee of a neighbourhood plan. Now that's only going to work, I think, if we merged leisure services and community services, we'd need to do some serious thinking about that as to how to do it. But at the moment, of course, we haven't got community services or leisure services because not much is happening with regard to those. So that would be a tentative way forward, which might meet some of what you are concerned about, Councillor Hood.
Yep, that sounds great to me.
Okay, so the proposal is that first of all, copies of the policies and the community actions go out to all councillors to be stored in their library and not to be thrown away, or wherever they keep their council papers. And then we will look at a meeting cycle that will include the Newmarket Neighbourhood Plan Committee.
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
could I just clarify something? Because I wasn't meaning to say that I thought it was right to join community services and leisure services.
No.
I wasn't really addressing that. So
No, I think proposals will have to come before council and we will need to discuss that thoroughly. Because
yeah.
yes, there are pros and cons for merging those two committees.
Yeah, but I'm happy to second.
Not a clear-cut decision. Okay, I'm moving that from the chair. Is that seconded?
By me, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Any further discussion on that?
A possible date for a Newmarket Neighbourhood Plan meeting might be the 29th of this month.
That would be...
We're going to have a full council on the 29th.
That's a possibility, Andrew. I think we need to just
carry it forward. Yeah.
Because what we would normally do, of course, is have only one town council meeting a month.
Yeah.
And that would allow a neighbourhood plan meeting to take place. Yeah. I'm a little bit worried about having a neighbourhood plan meeting on the same night as a town council meeting. That would be a long meeting for some people. Let us look through it and prepare a paper on that.
Yeah, could I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but in the past we've had non-councillors as members, so I don't quite know how that works.
Of the neighbourhood plan?
Yes.
I actually, I wasn't going to raise it now, but it's certainly been in the back of my mind. There are certain key people who would be a great advantage to have on that committee. And I believe we can have members of the public on that committee, though they don't necessarily have voting rights. So I agree with you. And that will form part of the paper that we'll put forward around these items. I think we've got two things agreed, that we can send copies immediately to councillors, arranging a cycle of meetings to include a neighbourhood plan meeting, and who will be on that, we can put as a future proposal to the council. Okay, I hope, Julie, you've got all of that. Any town council manager?
Yeah, do you have a meeting, a date at which that would all be considered? I'm just thinking if you're going to combine committee services and leisure services, if that's something that's going to be thought about. I think we need to put quite a lot of thought into that. And because
ideally it will be the next council meeting, which is the 15th.
Okay, well,
2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it would be useful to have some input from councillors.
Well, yeah, any ideas from councillors about how we shift towards returning to a normal cycle of meetings? And this will also be slightly dependent on next week's meeting of the H&R committee, where we'll be looking at how we move out of lockdown. So all of this has got to come together. So yeah, as always, the ideas of councillors are really important. And if you've got an idea, if you would like to put it either to me or to the town council manager. Yes, Councillor Drummond.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Why don't we wait and decide after we've looked at the confidential item 21? Because that kind of is about how the town starts to get back to normal again.
I don't think that will be that significant in terms of the neighbourhood plan, but I take your point. I think we can make the decision that we're going to, this I would like to put forward as a proposal. From an administrative point of view, that the policies and the community actions go out to all councillors. And that a proposal is that a neighbourhood plan committee be set up to be fitted in to our monthly cycle. So I'm not committing us to anything more than that. And those are the items I'd like to be as a resolution, which I will move from the chair. And Councillor Hood is seconding that, I think. Councillor Caesar, are you speaking or are you voting?
It's on mute. No voting.
Right, okay. I take there's no further discussion on that then. All those in favour of that resolution, please.
Yes.
And those against? Thank you very much. Okay, we move to item 14, speed indicator device. Kathy, can you bring us up to date where we are? I think you know that I have a slight concern about this.
Yes.
I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Drummond.
Sorry.
Carry on, Kathy.
I had a look into this because I wasn't involved last year with all the sort of logistics of it other than ordering the unit. We have a second one on order, which they were saying about 6 weeks that'll be delivered. It occurred to me then that we might not have, nobody would probably have asked for the post that had to put it onto. I think this one was for New Cheveley Road. I've been in touch or tried to get in touch with the relevant people at Suffolk County Council. I'm just awaiting for them to get back to me from last week to find out if they've actually had an application from us, because I couldn't find anything for the new post on Cheveley Road. Now, I spoke to Gary today because Phillips Road was mentioned and Elizabeth Avenue as well. And as far as he's concerned, no posts are on Phillips Road or Elizabeth Avenue. But I can't be sure of that because we don't know exactly where they would have been. He took a walk up Elizabeth Avenue today, found a post that didn't have anything on it and sent the photo back to me, but I'm not convinced that that's actually the one.
Okay. Well, if I can fill you in on the Elizabeth Avenue one, because I was the one who asked that, and we got photos of the near misses or the results of the near misses. And I spoke to the residents there. I knocked on all the houses saying, is it okay if we put up a speed indicator device? And as far as I'm aware, Suffolk County Council then decided where it was going to go. And I went back to the house where it was going to go and said, is it all right if the post is put upside outside your house? And that's, so when I saw this on the agenda, I thought, well, what about the one in Elizabeth Avenue? So, because I thought we were almost there on that. And it's about a year ago since.
Right. I wonder if you could email me the details of where it is supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's outside number 35, but I'll double check on that.
Okay, and then I can check with Gary if that's where he took his photo. And if that's up, then we can start putting it there on its next cycle. As far as Phillips Road is concerned, does anybody know about Phillips Road?
Yeah, so Phillips Road was my request, which is why we got the second speed indicator device. It was at the last, it was at the development planning meeting. A member of the public asked for a SID to be placed on St Phillips Road because of the speeding that goes on down there and the damage to cars that is the offshoot of that. So that was the proposition for having the secondary speed indicator device. So it would be sited there as well as other places. But I don't know if we actually did the paperwork to get the post. So
I mean, obviously, when they get back to me, I can clarify all of this. But it helps if I've got all the other information. So I know where the one on New Cheveley Road needs to be, and I'm just waiting for them to get back to me so that I can actually apply, because I'm pretty sure that nobody has actually asked them at this point if they would put a post on there. So at the moment we have, Gary has told us that it rotates around 4 sites at the moment. It's Fitzroy Street, Moulton Road, Bury Road and Snailwell Road, with about a month at each one.
Councillor Drummond, and then Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I have, through my county locality budget, paid for another device. So I don't know, we've got 3 now. And as part of that was really to go New Cheveley Road near where the park is, because there have been some near misses with kids running across the road and speeding cars there. So I would like it to go there first. And it was part of the deal that I had to explain where I wanted to put it. But after it's been there for a while, it doesn't have to stay there forever. It could then go to Exning Road.
Right. Councillor O'Neill.
I was just going to say that I thought it would have been at a community services meeting, but it was probably at development and planning because I couldn't see it in the minutes. But I asked for a speed indicator device to be, our current one, to be placed on New Cheveley Road, probably in August or September time. And I know that Councillor Caesar and Councillor Kirby backed me up on that and agreed that we needed one there where cars speed onto Ashley Road and come from Ashley Road and speed up New Cheveley Road. And so I was often asking for it to be put on the agenda, the locations it was at, because I want to know where it was. So I've wanted it there for a long, you know, I've asked for it there, residents have asked for it there for a long time.
Councillor Diaz.
I have seen the SID on New Cheveley Road in the last couple of weeks. There's definitely been one place there.
Yeah, but I think that's the East Cams one, isn't it? It's down by the railway bridge.
Oh, okay.
Which it's a different style. It's more it's kind of better because it's got the text on it. But I don't think we can have that in Suffolk. Or that at least that was what was discussed when we were talking about the St Philip's Road one / the New Cheveley Road one. But yes, ideally, if we could get posts in New Cheveley Road by the playground, St Philip's Road where it's going into Edinburgh Road, and what was it? What was the other location? Elizabeth Avenue. That would be ideal.
Councillor Hood.
Yeah, there is. I think we ought to be very careful because there's the one that we, for some reason, was got on the Berry Road, but it was placed on the wrong side of the road, so it clocks the cars coming into town when they're going slowly, rather than the cars going at goodness knows how many miles an hour out of town. So it's a bit of a cautionary tale because, you know.
Okay, I think this is something dear to all councillors' hearts because we do want to make certain the traffic isn't speeding through our town. So I think we need to put it as quite a high priority to get out, sort out the mess and find out where we are. So Kathy, I think that's a job for you if you can manage that and report back to us, please.
Okay, if the Berry one is on the wrong side of the road, perhaps we ought to get it turned around. Moved.
Well, it's pretty pointless in my view having it. It's really quite close into town, and people are slowing down as they come towards it. And I think it was originally supposed to be to stop people going out of town at 100 miles an hour, literally. So yeah.
Who actually decides where they're sighted and how long for?
Councillor Caesar, and then I think we're going to move on because we're going around in circles. Councillor Caesar.
I was just going to say, if we're going to pick a direction, can we? The one on St Philip's Road needs to be in the facing downhill. Sorry, facing uphill, so that when you're coming off Exning Road, going down towards Edinburgh Road, that's when you speed, and that's when you create the damage to the cars because you're on that side. So yeah.
I'd like to see. Sorry. Also, I'd like to see some of them put also on the Fordham Road, going in and out of town towards Tesco's roundabout.
Well,
the cars speeding up there, most of them are doing about over 60 going up there.
If we've got 3 of them, then we should be able to have them a sensible amount of time in all the places we've asked. And clearly, we've got to liaise with Suffolk County Council, find out who their responsible officer is, and find out if these posts are going in. Town Council Manager.
I believe we've only currently got one, and the one that Councillor Drummond has paid for is on order. So there would be 2 to go around the various sites. We've got 4 existing sites. We've got 3 proposed sites, plus another one on the agenda for tonight to consider as Exning Road, and possibly a further one with Councillor Holbert's suggestion of Fordham Road. So I wonder whether that's something that really needs to be sort of taken up by a committee, perhaps, to take forward.
Well, it's the obvious committee is Community Services, which isn't meeting at the moment, so that's rather difficult. I think in the first instance, can we have another report back to the next Town Council meeting? As I say, there's not a councillor who doesn't want to see this working properly, and so we've got to find a way of making it work properly. And that means finding what Suffolk County Council think they're doing, figuring out whether we've got 2 or 3 of these, and making certain that they then move around these sites and we have a system for when a new site comes forward, because no one's going to say, no, that's a wrong place to put it. Every place is important. Can we handle that?
I'll find out some more information and get a report done.
Thank you very much. I'd appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the Memorial Gardens. We've got some quotes, I think, about the sensory wall, page 39 of your pack. We've got the funds to cover this, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it's in the, we have an earmark reserve for this amount. And this quote here is the revalidated quote. This was the one that everybody preferred. There was a decision made on that quite a while ago now. But the quote was out of date. So they've updated it, and this is the amount, and this is exactly the amount pretty much that we've got for this set aside.
The proposal is that we accept this quote. It's gone up because it's a long time since we asked for it. It's the one we did agree to, and it's the attractive one. Any comments? Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, and Councillor Diaz, I'm taking that, seconding it. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favour of accepting the quote?
Yes.
And anyone against? I believe that's carried without anyone against. The Snack Shack. This is the cafe in the middle of the Memorial Hall. An update on that. We got any news on that?
Well, yeah, sort of non-news really. Just before lockdown, we, having tried to contact them several times, didn't get a response. And then on the day we were locking down, they turned up to come and clear the Snack Shack and said they wanted to continue. They haven't paid their last 6 months arrears yet, and again told me they would definitely do that immediately. And we said we'd contact them when we could let them in, which I have done, saying they could come. And I've written to them, phoned them several times, and again had no response whatsoever. So it's really a decision as to what we do now about the age debt, the bad debt of the £600, but also about the actual shack, which has got food in there it's not greatly clean at the minute.
Views? Anyone have any views about the Snack Shack? I suppose we ought to put an ultimatum. If they don't pay the £600 by a certain time, then we will look for someone else. Would that be a reasonable way forward? I think we're all dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Councillor Diaz.
Have environmental health been round, Kathy, to look at it?
No, because again, although that was mentioned at that point, then they said they were coming in, and then immediately we went into lockdown. I'm not sure, would they come now? They might do. I mean, we could.
I thought that I had heard that environmental health were doing distance inspections. I mean, I'm not quite sure how, but that was my understanding. I mean, and that might just be home ones, you know, people that are catering from home, they might be doing it that way. So I'm not sure about outside establishments, but I think we need to get environmental health round as quickly as we can, because if it's in that much of a state, it just gives us a bit more flexibility on where we go with our decision.
So what's the proposal there? We get environmental health in and then make a decision?
Yes.
I'd second that.
Caesar and then Councillor O'Neill.
Well, I'd second that. We should get environmental health round before we make a decision about this. But I was also going to query whether or not there's anything in the contract about them having to have the Snack Shack open and trading, and because they were, I mean, it was closed when they could have been open, wasn't it? And they had basically ceased operating. And if we've only got that one premises for a Snack Shack, we don't want to be going unused. So is there anything in the contract that stipulates they have to run if they're a business there.
There's an expectation from my memory of negotiations with the previous tenant. There was an expectation that from Easter to October half term that they would be open. But the reason that I say an expectation, if it's pouring with rain, there's not much point in them being open.
No, but if they're shut endlessly for weeks, then...
Well, absolutely. I don't know what their record was. I didn't keep tabs on that.
They were open quite successfully from April, which is when they started last year, to September, October time. And then obviously they were closed because I think they did open at various points. I think they definitely opened at the Christmas market.
Okay.
They did.
Yeah.
We have a proposal, I think, which is to seek guidance from environmental health. So should we do that first and then address the £600? Okay, the proposal is that we seek the guidance of environmental health and take that from Councillor Diaz, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any further discussion? All those in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. Any against? No. Please, if you are against, I'm looking very carefully, but shout if you don't feel your vote is being counted. We now go on to item C on 15, which is the retention payment. This is to do with the I can't think of the right word, the pads, the water feature.
Splash pad.
Splash pads, that's the one. They have redone the surface. I was delegated with Councillor Kirby to look at it. Councillor Kirby wasn't able to be there, but I did look at it with Gary. We agreed that they have corrected it well. We were concerned that we didn't know how it would, what it would be like when young people are using it, but they have managed to do a good job. And so my proposal is that we do pay them the balance because we have a warranty on the work that they've done for 3 years, is it, Kathy?
Well, colour is 5 years. 3 years is the black one. The black area is 3 years, and the colour is for a period of 5 years from installation.
So we've got a warranty on it, and so I feel that we can't withhold the money because no one's using it at the moment, but therefore we should pay the retention payment. So that's my proposal from the chair. Any questions? No questions. Can someone second that then, please? That is seconded by Councillor Caesar, was the first hand up. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please show.
Yes.
And those against? And no one is against. Moving on to item 16, West Suffolk Council Service Level Agreement, an update on the planters in the High Street. Deborah, do you want to do this one?
Yes, I have just received an email while we've been in the meeting. I haven't had a chance to read it, but there was an issue raised over the weekend by Councillor Drummond about the grass bank behind the Queen's statue, which is looking unkempt, and there's been a discussion over whether or not that falls within the SLA. So keeping it tidy falls within the SLA, but keeping it watered, which is obviously has been a problem in the past, and particularly with the very hot, dry spring that we've had is now a problem again. So Gary is more than happy to go and water the mound, and John Van Reed Toes has said that he would arrange for it to be cut tomorrow. And the planting for the summer bedding scheme will be provided next week. They're currently stripping and preparing the planters and the beds, and we will use these category B shielding staff to help with this as they need to work in isolation. After the summer bedding has been planted, the watering will be carried out daily until the plants become established, and then as required, depending on weather conditions, but no less than 3 times per week. There are 2 small beds near the bus stations where I'd like to talk about, as Newmarket Town Councillors were looking to replace bedding with small shrubs, which can still happen. And would you ask the councillors their views tonight, please?
So we have a question there, do we want bedding plants or small shrubs? Is that correct?
Yeah, at the 2 small beds near the bus station.
Okay, yep, I think I know what you mean. And we've got a reassurance that the watering is going to take place on a regular basis throughout the summer. That was reassurance.
I mean, I would suggest that there's probably likely to be a cost implication for the shrubs because they would be more expensive than bedding plants, potentially.
Okay, what do you think? Anyone's got strong views about shrubs or bedding plants? Councillor Diaz.
There may be an initial additional expense for the shrubs, but long term they should be cheaper because they won't need replacing, will they?
Okay.
You know,
Anyone? Councillor Caesar.
Do we get any information as to what variety of shrubs? I mean, are we talking about sort of nice evergreen Hebes, or, you know, just Mexican orange blossoms, you know, or are they going to be just sort of generic council kind of green leafy things?
I think that is a very valid point. And my initial reaction is when the bedding plants are put in, it looks magnificent, those two beds near the bus station. And having shrubs there will not necessarily look so magnificent. And that was my first reaction. I think it'd be a shame to see the bedding plants go, although there is an annual cost, obviously, to putting in bedding plants. Gardeners amongst you, who feels strongly about this? Can you picture the flower beds we're talking about? Hard, isn't it? Councillor Diaz.
Well, I just think, as Councillor Caesar says, it's very dependent on the shrubs that are used, because there are some beautiful perennial shrubs around that could be used. I think, you know, if we go for something that's colourful and evergreen and maybe has flowers in one part of the season and berries in another part of the season, we're looking at an ongoing annual display, which will look lovely. Whereas bedding plants are great, but they are very seasonal and not necessarily a long-lasting option. I do think it's dependent on the shrub that's used.
Yeah, variegated ones that flower different times of years would be good. You know, some daphnes and some
Hebes, that sort of thing.
Yeah. If we had a nice mix, I mean, what we don't want is them to stick in one variety across the whole bed, and then you've just got a mass that only flowers for a couple of weeks and is one colour. You know, this really does depend on what the kind of scheme is they are intending to put in there. As to whether or not we just go stick to flowers.
Town Council Manager.
Can I make a suggestion then, because obviously some careful thought needs to go into which shrubs to plant. Would it be perhaps prudent to continue with the bedding scheme for this year with a view to considering options for shrubs in those beds for consideration for next year's planting? Perhaps Councillors Diaz and Caesar could put their heads together to come up with some proposed shrubs that could be used on those sites. But in the meantime, so that we've got something in there, we continue with the bedding scheme this year.
Is that acceptable to councillors? Councillor Diaz, Councillor Caesar?
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so this year we'll continue with the bedding plants, but next year we will consider the shrubs after consultation with Councillor Diaz and Councillor Caesar. That is the proposal. Is that seconded? I think Councillor Yarrow seconded that. All those in favour, please.
Yeah.
No. And again, thank you. That's carried.
Yeah.
Item 17. Several.
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Under the service level agreement, is it appropriate right now to speak about mention the grass cutting? Because I've been challenged a few times by residents in the area.
Please speak. What's the issue as you perceived it, or is your
not cut and a mess?
It's a mess
and not being cut. Yeah.
Okay.
In months.
Councillor Yarrow, can I suggest that if there are some very specific areas that you could detail that in an email to me, and I will forward it on to the West Suffolk Council team for comment, because it might be that it's just slipped through the net or something that needs to be reviewed. But the best way to get that dealt with is to forward it to me.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll do that.
Can I just remind us all that there are, if you like, 3 types of cut going on. There are the county cuts, which are done by West Suffolk, which are on a particular frequency. West Suffolk has its own areas on a different frequency, and obviously the SLA only relates to town council properties such as the Severals. So they're all on different cuts, and sometimes, you know, you can look at an area and think, well, that's unkempt, and it's on a different cycle of cutting to others.
Yes, and I'm not sure which ward we come under in that,
Okay.
in that regard.
So what I suggest is if you could do as the town council manager says, Councillor.
Will, thank you.
And bring it to her attention. Which, therefore, I will now go on to item 17, Several's cricket pitch. And I'm hoping Councillor Appleby is going to talk.
The cricket club are keen to play as soon as possible, particularly as a facility for youngsters in the summer holidays. But of course, it will depend on what the government allows us to do. Any cricket this year is likely to use a softball or tennis ball to avoid injury. And the intent is to prepare the square for cricket next year. That's it.
Lovely, thank you. Any questions to Councillor Appleby? In that case, we will move on to item 18, committee membership, to consider a request from Councillor Yarrow to join the Human Resources Committee. We do have to approve this, so it's just a straight vote. All those in favour of Councillor Yarrow joining the Human Resources Committee, please show now.
Yes.
And those against, please show now. There are none against. I think there were 2 abstentions. Is that all right, Town Council Manager? I think that was agreed without any against.
Yes.
Thank you. 19, any correspondence? Is there any correspondence?
Sorry, no, there's no correspondence.
In that case, can we now vote to include the exclusion of press and public to look at items 21 and item 11? So
item 21, that doesn't seem to me to be particularly controversial. I'm surprised that West Suffolk.
It is West Suffolk has asked us at this moment. They will be making statements.
I trust it won't be counterproductive.
Sorry, Councillor Appleby.
I trust it won't be counterproductive, that people might think there's some cunning plan going on, which they...
Okay, the situation is, Councillor Appleby, that the West Suffolk Council clearly is making plans for when lockdown is reduced, as it is reducing. Those plans were shared with us, and I asked that we could share it with councillors on a confidential basis, because I thought it was important that councillors are kept informed. Okay, it has to be done at this stage.
Don't worry.
Councillor Drummond.
Yeah, it's actually West Suffolk. Jill Corwin has asked that we don't share these quite yet. They're kind of embargoed. They'll be coming out, and we're actually having the privilege of seeing them in advance.
So I do need to have a vote that we exclude the press and the public. So all those in favour of moving into a confidential at this point in the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And those against? Well, thank you very much to the public for joining us for this meeting, and Alison, thank you for joining us. If we could now leave the meeting.